revisit each of the Akatsuki members' final opponents. You'll notice they all had severe counters burdened against them. For example, Sasori had to battle one of the most agile ninja, Hidan died to an intellect gap, Deidara had to fight a Sharingan lightning release character, Kisame had to fight a taijutsu based fighter. Notice a theme? So what would happen if each Akatsuki duo swapped fights? So what if Deidara fought Chiyo and Sakura and Sasori battled Hebi Sasuke? So yeah, that's exactly the premise. So let's jump straight into the matches we'll be talking about, being Hidan versus Naruto, Kakuzu versus Shikamaru, Deidara versus Sakura and Chiyo, Sasori versus Hebi Sasuke, Itachi versus 7th Gate Guy, Kisame versus Hebi Sasuke, Konan versus Sage Mode Naruto, and Pain versus Obito. So yeah, all the timestamps will be in the description, and yeah, let's jump straight in. Beginning with Hidan versus the Naruto who brought down Kakuzu is probably for the video's benefit, as it is one of the most blatant battles on this list. Consistently, Hidan is always portrayed below Kakuzu. Hidan admits Kakuzu puts in more work in Jinchuriki capture. Hidan was open to saying that he was the slowest in the Akatsuki, and also, if you kind of analyze the Kakashi fight, you can notice that Kakashi was parrying off Hidan on a back foot while Hidan was the aggressor, moving at full speed. Whilst in combat with Kakuzu though, Kakashi was forced to use 4 Raikiri and he can't even dodge every attack and is still caught here and there. You could state that this Naruto is also inferior to Kakashi, in which that may be true. Kakashi seemingly believes Naruto is close to him after the time skip, then sees him fight and is like, well, you may surpass me soon. So yeah, Naruto is implied to be under Kakashi, yet he still should be above Hidan, or at least on this level, as Naruto was able to react and blitz Kakuzu with the Rasen Shuriken, an attack that completely nulls any and all durability regardless of raw power. This will come very handily, as we don't really know how durability negating attack would interact with Hidan. However, I do think Hidan should die to this, just simply how it'd be kind of like how it just totally fried Kakuzu's nervous system and his cells, leaving Hidan virtually down for the count. Because if you notice one thing about Hidan is Asuma cuts his ear and it just never heals back. So Hidan's wounds are more or less, he can take the wounds, but they don't have that healing factor. They just kind of heal in the position without regrowing certain parts, I guess, if that makes sense. So next up, we got Kakuzu versus Shikamaru. Keeping this one brief, similar to the last one, they are the least interesting bouts, so we know that Kakuzu should have an advantage just due to the overwhelming factor. However, it should be noted that Shikamaru is quite fast and would be able to react to Kakuzu pretty soundly, as we can see Kakuzu attempting to attack Shikamaru from behind, yet Shikamaru still reacts and dodges Kakuzu. This is prior to him releasing the Shadow Possession, as I have heard the argument that Kakuzu disrupted it, and that's how Shikamaru was able to kind of precog Kakuzu's attack, which is just wrong, as the Shadow Possession is already released following Shikamaru dodging Kakuzu. Playing off that same encounter, we are also made aware that despite of Kakuzu's impressive intellect, characters such as Aoba and Advanced Jonin can catch him off guard with basic strategies such as Crow Diversions and a Black Blade, emerging out to hit his ear, or even Naruto, who is able to use basic clones to divert Kakuzu's attention to aid in the speed disparity. This could allude to even if Shikamaru does have a speed advantage, he should still be able to widen that gap even further with more advanced strategies than Aoba and Naruto's. Many people at one point believed Kakuzu's speed was nowhere near Shikamaru's pace and was much closer to KCM 1 level, in which I don't want to spend too much time on this. However, I'll just say that even if you take the main encounter with Kakuzu and Yugito, Kakuzu is able to barely place his hands above his head preemptively when Yugito's full Matatabi transformation, which is potentially slower than her, is forced to move her right paw from her knee to full extension behind her head and then down onto Kakuzu. So if anything, Kakuzu didn't need near as many movements and would have just been reacting to the drawback speed. This should also be pretty consistent, as Shikamaru can react to his fastest attack, or arguably fastest attack, being the False Darkness, as we can see him completely turn his scroll in defense whilst in sync with Choji, who also reacts to Kakuzu. Meaning that even if you take Kakuzu's reaction feats, then Shikamaru is just on whatever arbitrary level as well. Shikamaru also reacts to the fire style pretty hastily, and I don't see many scenarios where, Kakuzu beats him easily. I think Shikamaru could win via his intelligence or potential speed advantage, placing Shikamaru as the superior, but there could be quite the case made for the hearts being a little too much at once with his, Shadow Possession, and maybe Kakuzu just out-fatigues him or overwhelms him. So, for this match, I'll just leave it up to your interpretation, but I would say that Kakuzu could probably overcome it just due to win cons. Now, next up, we have Sasori versus Hebi Sasuke. I'm going to be blunt with this one. Hebi Sasuke is slamming Sasori. First off, we are made aware that Sasuke, even prior to absorbing Orochimaru, is capable of perception blitzing Sakura, a combatant who is very capable of either reacting or perceiving Sasori's movements in many instances, such as during their father and mother versus 3rd Kazekage puppet clash, and the 3rd Kazekage charging at her when she shattered the puppet. So regardless, even if you want to be skeptical and say that Sasori suffered a lot of mental affliction, that's fine, even though that's much later in the bout, but whatever, as even if that were to be the case, she could still perceive Sasori's movements, and then Sasuke is just in base substantially faster than her perception. This is very consistent with the 3rd database, claiming that Sasuke has a godlike speed and a fighting power that exceeds even the Akatsuki, which a smaller text also expounds upon this, giving more credence to this being speed-based, stating that in an instant, he gets behind his opponent brandishing his sword. His speed takes away the breath of even the Akatsuki. Many people are very quick to write this off and say that Sasuke is not faster than Pain or Itachi, which is true. However, narratively by this time, we have a few things set up. Firstly is that Naruto and Sasuke are no longer rivals, with Sasuke's power greatly exceeding him, in part to his training with Orochimaru. Naruto now has a new benchmark to reach, being that base Sasuke who blitzed him and Sakura. Both Naruto and Sasuke by this point have been battling off against the lower members of the Akatsuki, i.e. Kakuzu and Deidara and whatnot. However, during the Kakuzu bout, Naruto is still inferior to that Sasuke, both defeating Akatsuki members, but Sasuke isn't just in the Akatsuki tier, it's a higher area of it, being more like a middle tier to the Akatsuki, so Naruto has to be above these Akatsuki members to reach his once rival. So Sasuke having speed or techniques that surpass even the Akatsuki is very consistent and is in reference to the Akatsuki members narratively placed between Naruto and Sasuke, making Sasuke narratively faster than Sasori as well, which hasn't even been taken into account that Sasuke possesses the 3 Tomoe Sharingan, which is implied that he actually has his topped out. Now I won't get into that too much as I'm planning to discuss that in my What If Itachi and Sasuke swapped fights, but essentially Sasuke has mastered the 3 Tomoe Sharingan and it can no longer improve. This is crucial as Sasuke can see chakra as color, as stated against Deidara, meaning that the strings will be perceived as well as the Sharingan's kinetic vision, which allows Sasuke to close speed disparities via analyzing linear movement, which Sasori's puppets are. Even in a weaker state, Sasuke was capable of keeping up with Killer Bee on a back foot, keeping pace for several clashes, who was obviously, greater than Sasori in both power, but more paramount than that, Kenjutsu and swordplay, as Sasori is very interesting when it comes to his blades, possessing many different unique blades, which, to be honest, could be even more exponential in battle than Bee's 8-sword style. As we could see, he seemingly had several different types that were all coated in poison, with namely many additions to the already powerful 3rd Kazekage puppet, giving his techniques many arms and multiplying the arms and blades that come out of his body. So yes, the poison could plan out an issue, but there's nothing to say that it would ever hit Sasuke. However, even if you grant that, it's also implied that Sasuke has some very keen poison resistance. So, you can kind of argue how that would come into play, presupposing that it were to hit Sasuke, in which I don't really see that happening. Even if Sasori were to use his best strategic attack, the Iron Sand Shower, Sasuke would be able to see all the microscopic chakra as he did with the C4. So we know that Sakura one-tapped the 3rd Kazekage puppet, which means that Sasuke's basic Chidori would probably be overkill. Say even if Sasori were to use his biggest advantage here, being his 100 puppets, who once destroyed a nation, they also sort of suck, and were dealt with rather handily. Now, the manga doesn't give a direct answer to which nation he destroyed, but the anime has it as a small nation bordering the Land of Fire and the Land of Rivers, called the Land of This, in which the Akatsuki were hired to destroy it for another neighboring land to then take over after the battle, and Sasori used his 100 puppets to kill virtually a bunch of civilians. So what does this jutsu even do to someone like Hebi Sasuke? Well, Sasori also shouldn't really have any counter to things whatsoever, such as Kirin or even a Chidori through the chest, as I mentioned earlier, which Sasuke would notice instantly that the chakra was all in one spot, the core, and then just instantly destroy that. So Sasuke definitely beats Sasori. However, with that being said, how would Deidara, his partner, deal with Sasori's deathmatch, being Sakura and Chiyo? In which, funnily enough, your opinions on Sasori versus Deidara don't really matter here. Oh, and if you want to know more about that, my video will be in the description. But anyway, at first glance, you could say that, well, Deidara fought Sasuke, right? Who's just a perception blitz, tier above Sakura, in which, yes, this is kind of true. Deidara does not really scale to Sasuke in regards to combat speed. Elaborating on that, you'll notice one thing in this fight being the distance, which I'll move back to in a minute, but the only 2 times where Deidara reacts to Sasuke is a base Sasuke from a very substantial distance, such as this, in which Sasuke moves and is capable of blitzing both Deidara and Tobi until Sasuke begins to halt his body flicker after cutting through Tobi's body, to then focus on Deidara only reacting to that Sasuke in the very last second due to the distance he had to cover. This is supported by the following sequence with Deidara standing on a tree, now much closer to Sasuke, and Sasuke does the exact same thing, and all Deidara could even do here is mentally react to fire a bomb in front of his own face, in which he states he barely managed to escape, hidden in the bomb blast. Following that, Deidara is very cautious of Sasuke's speed, and Sasuke is from an ever greater distance than before and moves towards them, in which Deidara simply denotes that he will no longer engage Sasuke in combat speed and will just fly outside of the 5-meter attack range. With this being said, you'll then notice that every time Sasuke was tagged in this fight, it was from the bomb's explosive velocities, not any reactive or combative speeds from Deidara. With this being said, let's analyze some different fighting styles to better see how Deidara would interact with Chiyo and Sakura. So when we're looking at Deidara versus Sasuke, we need to look at a statement presented in the 3rd data book, favorite battles section, in which it states for Sasuke versus Deidara, quote, 2 very different ninja using contrasting styles in a heated battle, long distance versus close range. Sasuke closes the gap with the mastery of his Sharingan, which directly implies that it's only due to the Sasuke's Sharingan that he was able to, so advantageously manipulate the battle style to be more close range and still, get those attacks off. Meaning that another set of fighters without the Sharingan, being Chiyo and Sakura, would be pretty fatal for them, as Deidara in character will size his opponents, as he does quite a bit, moving from C1 to C4. So eventually Deidara is just going to go to the C2 dragon relatively quick and rain down the tracking bombs. Now, although Sakura and Chiyo are both very agile fighters, it should get to a point where just stylistically they would be at a grave disadvantage, which neither Sakura nor Chiyo has anything to overcome. Even Sakura's best attributes, being her agility and strength, are null because she probably wouldn't even be able to ever interact with Deidara physically, so Deidara should beat up Sakura and Chiyo pretty fairly. Now, moving to my personal favorite duo, being Kisame and Itachi, and beginning with Itachi, we have Itachi Uchiha versus 7th Gate Guy, and I'm going to be completely blunt here too. This fight is both the hardest to assert and is potentially the highest difficulty on this list. I'm kidding. Firstly, Guy is super impressive in this fight, as he does display feats of relativity to a potentially weakened Kisame, his 6th gate with the Isaku Jaku and the 1000 Sharks equaling each other out, and then combating each other quite smoothly, or at least enough to where Guy felt that he couldn't beat Kisame in 6th gate and needed 7th to do so. A 7th gate attack that stayed to not even be on the level of his 6th gate ones, to which he was then able to react to Kisame at the same time, with Kisame getting overpowered and still tanking the Hirudora. However, being relative to Kisame is not a good look, to be honest, as the Akatsuki novel has Kisame implying that he couldn't even go all out, as if Itachi was suppressing his power due to the gap, which is pretty ridiculous. However, I wouldn't say this is inconsistent, as the games take a similar route and Itachi, while still alive, can be scaled to his Edo Tensei state. Now, yes, I know this is very controversial, and I don't want to make this too long, but essentially, the reason many people believe in the notion that he is weaker is simply based on the fact that when Itachi was alive, he had this horrible illness, thinking only back to his fight against Sasuke without considering his 30% clone fight. Yet in Edo, he seemingly doesn't have this illness, so does Edo Itachi have the illness? Probably, just a more mellow version. The reason for this is we know that when reanimated, you are weaker than your alive state. However, your body naturally still possesses all the properties of the original. When Hashirama was reanimated, he still had all the Hashirama cells, even without being in control of his original body. Hiruzen had all of his old hair, which pretty much just kind of means that Hiruzen still had all of his old man traits with the wrinkles and his new Edo Tensei body, as it copied the amount of pigment cells that give humans their natural hair color, even giving Hiruzen the same amount of wrinkles he has fighting Orochimaru, being 4, which is consistent, as during the Uchiha Massacre he has 3 wrinkles, and the Nine Tails attack he has 2 wrinkles. So Kishimoto is very clearly consistent with Hiruzen's aging, so this was probably planned. Uchihas, when revived, had the same ocular nerves that are linked still uniquely to the Uchiha bodies without, the Edo body initially possessing it. Nagato came back with the Rinnegan, etc, etc, etc. You get what I'm saying. Therefore, Itachi should be brought back in the same manner, not just some random arbitrary time where he just doesn't have it. Clearly, not back during his fight with Sasuke, as his ocular nerves aren't completely impaired, with the cataracts being destroyed, preventing accumulation of protein on the islands, therefore it only reflect blatant UV light rays. So Itachi wasn't brought back then, but rather just some unknown time prior to that point, just a little weaker. Itachi's eyes also bleed. Many people are extremely quick to note that Itachi does get cut in half and there's no blood whatsoever, therefore he doesn't have his sickness. This is erroneous, and yes, I can understand why one would believe this, but still, Masashi Kishimoto works under Shonen Jump, a rather kid-friendly, youth-appealing publishing company not designed for edgy, full-grown adults. The reason as to why the Edo bodies bleed in normal fashion, such as blood from the eye and mouth, and the reason why they don't bleed when Miyato's arms are sliced off, or when Tobirama's body is cut in half vertically, or when Itachi is cut in half at the midsection, heck, even normal bodies such as Ten Tails Madara, when they're cut in half, don't bleed, is just probably because Kishimoto can't have half bloody, disgusting entrails and organs flying all over the screen when a character gets cut in half. It just wouldn't make sense. So please, Itachi does still have his blood. With all that being said, a live Itachi should just be somewhere around the level, or even if you're being generous, potentially even higher than Edo Itachi. However, here we can just say that he's relative to, or at least still above, his 3 Tomoe suppressed state. Itachi during that whole battle against SM Naruto, Edo Nagato, and Killer B was suppressed, only whipping out the Mangekyo when he absolutely needed it, and kept the Susanoo at the lowest stage, yet still parried off a full power Killer B, one stronger than the one from the Kisame fight, with Itachi reacting and evading the 8-sword style, catching him with fire style and genjutsu all in 3 Tomoe, which once in the Mangekyo, he was able to blitz Nagato, who was actually a blitz level above B, and SM Naruto, who are relative. This would be a War Arc B, meaning that he would be physically greater than his counterpart that battled Kisame, which is again pretty consistent with MS Itachi being quite a lot greater and quite a lot stronger than Kisame. Regardless of your interpretation of the B fight, we know Kisame was at full power and being amped against B via absorbing his chakra and having Samehada to aid many of his high-level reaction feats such as this one. So, if you don't see where I'm going with this, I think it's pretty clear Itachi would scale far above this guy. Even Kakashi, Guy's narrative rival, isn't really that close to Itachi in power from most of their showings, such as Itachi in 3 Tomoe with only 30% of his chakra, and Sick outpacing Sharingan Kakashi pretty casually in the middle of Shippuden. Now, of course, Guy does get stronger over the series, which is probably less beneficial than what you think, as this means that Guy's War Arc feats aren't applicable to the one that fought Kisame. Might Guy in the 3rd data book is stated to be more dedicated and hard work than his student, Rock Lee, who is stated in the Forest of Death to train anywhere at any time, basically just on the spot, meaning that Guy probably does as well, or even a more advanced and more dedicated version of that. Therefore, he wouldn't be equal or on the level of his War Arc self, or at least his War Arc self is greater than this guy. Guy's greatest disadvantage is one that we know he would use in character, being his anti-Sharingan techniques. However, these anti-Sharingan techniques are merely Guy looking at the feet in combat rather than the arms and eyes. This means that Guy wouldn't have any clue when Itachi uses the MS or even a Amaterasu, which would just blitz and kill Guy. Even if you want to be generous and give him the counter he had against Kisame, you'll notice that his large Hyodora and a Sakujaku would just get reflected by the Yadamir, which is omnidirectional, which Guy has nothing to get past. This also isn't even talking about if Guy were to look up or, see how the Totsuka blade deals with him, because let's be real, we get the point. Itachi slams Guy. I have heard people try to be ratty and argue how Itachi views Guy as a formidable opponent in part 1, but we know that Itachi was always lying around Kisame, trying to keep him, in check, and this could just be in a general respect deal rather than some inferiority complex. With that being said, Itachi beats Guy low to mid diff. For Itachi's partner, Kisame, how does he fare against Itachi's final opponent, Hebi Sasuke? Now, at first glance, this match seems obvious, but that may not be the case. Firstly, let's establish some basis to go off of, and then I think the Raikage is a good place to start. Kisame Hoshigaki, the Scourge of the Mist, is capable of reacting to base B and even V2B in some instances, with the aid of Samehada, of course. I have heard many people say that he can't scale to B, as he has implied that, he's holding back, yet the context for this is not what it seems. B B is holding back particularly large-scale jutsu that would attract attention. However, his actual combat speed should be at his normal level, and he wouldn't have any reason to hold that back. Yet Kisame, on the other hand, had to restrain himself from any lethal blows or hits, which could limit close quarters movement, and B himself also said that he will kill Kisame. Regardless, Kisame can still react and perceive B at his peak during that fight, as shown when he places his left foot on Samehada during B2B's charge, as well as a few other instances. However, the greatest problem here is where B can actually scale, and he only really scales under an unquantifiable Raikage who just lost an arm. We know it's disingenuous to associate him with his warrior self, as one of B's main characteristics is his training. B is constantly honing his skills and improving himself. I mean, that's literally what he was doing on the first page of his introduction. Training and fighting can also increase power by quite a bit, as B himself states this, and B would go on to fight numerous opponents during the war arc, therefore increasing his ability as well. So, if not through B, then what's a good way of comparison for Kisame and Sasuke, in which we know that Hebi Sasuke, after absorbing Orochimaru, is very powerful and possibly even greater than Taka Sasuke, who battled against B, as is noted by Jugo that he hadn't really recovered from neither the Itachi fight nor his loss of the curse mark. However, during the summit, this would change. Sasuke Uchiha would gain many amps from fighting, but most importantly, his hatred evolving along with his ocular abilities as well, which, for those who are unaware, kind of bounce off each other in regards to amps, but it's kind of just boosting Sasuke really fast, as we know that once Raikage A uses his version 2 Lightning Cloak, Sasuke could use the ribcage of the Susanoo. However, it would literally begin to manifest into his hatred incarnate, gaining a skeletal upper half, then one with armor and skin equipped with a crossbow, and then finally his version 4 Susanoo that is identical to his EMS one, giving the implication that Sasuke actually maxed out his base MS. However, one thing we only need to understand here is simply how fast he grew and his growth in general. Karin knows during the V1 portion of the fight, Sasuke has now grown even colder than his peak CM2 state. This implies that Sasuke is now beginning to surpass his Hebi Sasuke self, with him now being at the level which is capable of combating the version 1 Raikage alongside Suigetsu, piercing the Raikage and reacting to his taijutsu as well. Suigetsu would then go on to step out of the fight, and Sasuke would continue his strength increase and battle, but Suigetsu is relative to this Sasuke, and to a Sasuke who could also, combat V1A, and Suigetsu himself could even intercept A himself, meaning that, this stronger Suigetsu than the one of Hebi, of course, is relative to Hebi Sasuke. This is very crucial, as just prior to the B fight, Sasuke states that Suigetsu, a Hebi Sasuke level combatant, could not beat Kisame, which Kisame agrees to, so I think Kisame definitely does have an edge over Hebi Sasuke. Kisame also stylistically is just a very bad matchup for Sasuke, as Kisame can absorb chakra, including Sasuke's most pivotal weapon, his lightning release. Kisame can out-stamina Sasuke, with Kisame having the largest reserves in the entire Akatsuki, meaning that they would actually be larger than sick Itachi, who outlasted Sasuke. You could say Kirin or his flight ability would be able to help him a lot, but it's implied that Kirin was just as crazy as it was due to the Amaterasu being in the air, so Kisame could probably either absorb Kirin or just stay away from it. As for his flight, that's fine, he could just run away, but that doesn't really help him battle Kisame whatsoever. Maybe you could say that, that if, Sasuke were to be flying, maybe Kisame would fuse and summon the bubble, or just do the 1000 Shark Jutsu, which is undoubtedly the end for Sasuke. Killer B was holding back against Kisame to some extent, but when it came to the bubble, B was trying to evade Kisame, and it was still fruitless, with Kisame showing blatant superiority over a version 2B, who is obviously, leagues faster than Sasuke, and is also stylistically more built for water, being an octopus, than Sasuke, so all in all, Kisame wins. Moving on to our final two, starting with Konan versus Seijimo Naruto, in which I'll keep this one brief. Konan gets bullied by Naruto, just straight up. Now, I hate to be that guy, but she's really not that crazy. Her best showing is obviously her prepped bout with Obito, and even managing to blow off Obito's arm during that. However, let me ask you this, and I don't really mean to be disingenuous, but where does Obito's durability even scale at this time? His only feats whilst in Orange Mask are like tanking Suigetsu's sword attack to the arm, and that's really about it. I'm not even going to get into Orange versus Yellow Mask, but point being, I think you could at least argue that Naruto with a Sage Mode buff, particularly enhancing durability more than most stats, would be above or simply just wouldn't die to a paper bomb. This is of course presupposing that she could ever hit him. Spoiler alert, she couldn't. We know that she is obviously considered to be inferior to Pain, whom Naruto is tangling with and outperforming, with Konan even struggling with a base Jiraiya prior to her mental afflictions, and obviously Naruto is stated to be superior to his master in Sage Mode, meaning that Naruto would just scale far above Konan as well, so yeah, we're not going to beat around the bush, Naruto wins. Last but certainly not least, we have Obito in his Orange Mask state versus the 6 Paths of Pain. Now, I actually do believe that Obito would win this bout just due to his narratively higher showings. However, I do think Pain would propose quite a few problems for the Masked Man, which I'll get into in a minute. But for now, let's establish that Minato, Naruto's father, who is watching everything through Naruto's eyes, including the entire Pain fight, concluded with his genius mind that Obito is still far more of a threat than Pain, telling Naruto that he would need to master the 9 Tails to fight him. As the Masked Man was able to do battle with Minato whilst Hokage and keep up in a few instances, this being the same Minato who is compared to initial KCM2 Naruto in the war. This is extremely important as Pain is nowhere near this level, yet Obito probably is. This is consistent with Itachi scaling to KCM1 Naruto as I mentioned earlier, and Obito was always of the agreement that Itachi could take him out Batman style or something, meaning that Itachi, whose skills above KCM1, would pose a threat to Obito, whose skills slightly under initial KCM2. Seems pretty consistent. Now, I will say, if for whatever reason you don't subscribe to all of this, and just take Obito and scale him to KCM1 from his interaction with the Raikage during the 5 Kage summit. However, still, Pain has a few moves up his sleeves that are pretty scary for Obito. First being his Rainmaker Jutsu, and I'm sure you're asking, what is this? And I have a short detailing this further, but essentially, Obito and Pain interact in chapter 364, in which Obito enters Amegakure on a Sunday, a day where it doesn't rain at all, and Pain uses an extremely heavy Rainmaker Jutsu, and in response, Obito went into his 3 Tomoe Sharingan. The Rainmaker is a jutsu that hails down rain, obviously, but Pain can actually sense every single droplet, giving him an advantage all over the entire battlefield, meaning that in all reality, Konan was not the one who figured out Kamui, but rather Pain probably figured out the timers and the manner rather than some arbitrary nigh impossible method that Konan could have possibly done while studying him. This means that Pain would have intel on Obito, however, Obito also would as well, and with that knowledge still calls Pain his underling, implying that Obito is still a step above him. Obito is still affected by gravity whilst in Kamui as shown here with Fu and Torne, meaning that things such as Shinra Tensei and Bansho Tenin would work, as those are, merely just electromagnetic waves acting as gravitational forces. So maybe you could say that Obito would be at an ability disadvantage, which would be true. However, would this be able to make up for the speed disparity and Obito having ridiculous genjutsu as well as knowledge on all of the Pain's abilities? So while I do think this match is much closer than people think, Obito probably still wins just due to the edge. With that being said, my other Akatsuki videos will all be down in the description below, so be sure to check those out. As well, if you're new here or maybe you've seen my content before, please consider subscribing as that would help me out a ton, or just check out another one of my videos. But what did you guys think about this? Do you agree? Do you disagree maybe? Make sure to let me know down in the comments below either way. And as always, love you guys.